Welcome back to the Self Trust Solution Podcast. I'm your host, Dawn Lede, the Self Trust Coach. And today I am joined by Brittni Schroeder. Brittni is a business coach and marketing strategist who helps entrepreneurs automate their businesses, build sales funnels, and scale with systems that actually support growth. Before moving into coaching, Brittni spent over a decade as a high school senior photographer and also owned and operated Mosey Magazine. Her work has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Good Morning America, and many more publications. She's also spent more than 15 years working in the nonprofit sector and recently founded her own nonprofit, the Compassion Club. What I'm excited to explore in this conversation is Brittni's perspective on mindset, progress over perfection, and how learning to trust yourself through failure can become one of the most powerful assets in business. Brittni, I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Yes. So you've had a really interesting journey from photography and publishing to business coaching and marketing strategy and nonprofit. Take us back to the beginning of your entrepreneurial path. What did that early season of building a business look like for you?
Yeah, sure. I think, I didn't study anything to do with business in college. In fact, my bachelor's degree was in exercise science, so nothing. And then I think, I always had this knack for, business, and I'm very analytic. And I think it started off, I was a mom, and this ages me, but it was back in the day where blogging was starting to be a thing. And I saw these like mommy bloggers, and they were taking these pictures, and I was, oh, I want to blog, and I need to learn to take pictures, better pictures of my kids. And that's kind of how it started. And
Hmm.
I picked up a camera, and, I'd had a few jobs in corporate before I became a stay-at-home mom, but I started taking pictures, and I love to learn. And I'm like, okay, taking classes and self-taught and looking up, all these things. I think in like naturally the business part came really easy for me. I had to work more
Hmm.
at the creative part. But I think just, I took some classes. I found a mentor, and, I was doing all of these things. And I think I was just like always organized and always like systems, and I'm a checklister and, all of those things. Then I kind of started taking pictures of my kids and took some, some workshops, and took some classes and everything. And then I think it's like anything, like we start, we always have this pressure to niche down. And I always tell my clients, like, your business is going to evolve. Where you start is not where you're going to end. And just trying to figure it out. And I started doing photography, and then I'm doing all these different things. And I decide, you know what, I want to do high school senior photography. I love
Hmm.
fashion. I love teenagers. Like I'm a builder of I love to build people up, and I'm like, okay, this is where I need to be. Right around that same time, at the time, my husband, we were in Michigan and we'd moved to Texas. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna start fresh, and I'm gonna do high school seniors. And I started building it up. And around that same time, I had a friend who was kind of doing the same thing as me back in Michigan. And he said to me, you know what? We should start a photography magazine. And I'm like, "Sure." Like, I'm that person that's like, you can throw anything at me, and I'm like, "Sure, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it." I get excited. So he's like, "Let's start a magazine." And so we were kind of just figuring out as we go. We figured really quick that, okay, we need to outsource graphic design. This is not our jam. Like, although we could do it, we realized, like, okay, this is taking up too much time, and it's not our specialty here. So we outsourced that. And then it's kind of interesting because my friend that I was doing it with, his wife was my best friend, and she was a photographer too. And then she saw us doing it, and she's like, "Okay, yeah, I want to do it with you." And then she came in, and we kicked him out. Then we're like, he didn't want to do it anymore, and so we did it. But it was such an awesome like experience.
Yeah.
It opened up so many doors, like networking doors, because I
Mm.
was the editor in chief of the magazine. I knew everybody. Everybody, we were doing a ton of outreach, and people wanted to be in our magazine. And so it was just like a really like cool experience and learning. I learned publishing, I learned graphic design, I learned how to be organized and work with people. And we both had really big businesses too. Our photography businesses were really big. But I remember just my photography business, like, it just kept growing. I kept scaling,
Yeah.
And, I was making great money. I just kept raising my prices, and supply and demand, people kept coming. I kept raising. And, I had 2 really successful businesses.
Yeah. And what you demonstrate that I think is so important for our listeners to hear is that you weren't locked in by what you went to college for, and you
Yeah,
weren't locked in by what you had learned. In fact, had a willingness to learn. You have mentioned before that you didn't know what you didn't know until you started learning more. And
yeah,
that willingness to both just try and
yeah,
figure it out, and then also to outsource what wasn't
yeah.
in your zone of genius or what would support the business, allowing you to focus on your zone of genius.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, you should always focus on what you're good at and outsource things that aren't your strength. Delegate those things that are not your strengths. So, and we quickly learn that. And I think it's a little bit risky too. I will say, because your podcast is called The Self Trust, I by nature am not a risk taker.
mm,
As far as huge risks. Like, I'm a risk taker. I think as an entrepreneur, we're all a risk taker, but I think there's bigger risks and bigger risks, and I am very much like, okay, do I want to spend this? Will I get a ROI? Will I get a return on investment? And sometimes you just don't know, honestly. And sometimes you fail, and sometimes you don't get an ROI. But I think you're learning.
yeah, and
So
we take calculated risk is the way that, I mean, we honestly on the other side of whether it was a calculated risk or it was a risk that doesn't pan out the way that you want, there's still an incredible amount of learning to be had on the other side.
yeah.
And yet, yeah, it makes sense that your risk tolerance is going to expand and grow the more that you learn.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how you learn the most. So
Yeah.
but I was doing that. Alongside that, I'd always done, like, nonprofit work. I think this too ages me, because when I was younger, when I was in high school, I graduated high school in 1995, and I wanted to join the Peace Corps. And, like, now if you'd say that, people would be like, "What's the Peace Corps?" But I was like, I always had this, like, I love it. I just love serving. Like, I
Mm,
loved people. And so I had worked in a lot of, like, different nonprofits, and, um, I did Meals on Wheels for 6 years when my kids were little. Like, I would load up the stroller, and I would go to I just kind of love to be involved in the community. And then, it's interesting because I kept thinking, "Oh," I had this dream that I was gonna go to this third world country, and I wanted to help. And so I kept thinking, I need to go back to school and be a nurse, because in my head, I thought you have to do medical to help in third world countries. But it was actually, like, my camera that got me to a third world country. And I had a friend reach out to me and say, "Hey, we're going to go to Haiti and open up a school. Do you want to come and photograph it?" And I was like, yeah, I totally, like, yeah, I would love to do that. And so it was actually my camera that got me really involved. And I went to Haiti and took pictures of these kids that we did sponsorships for them to go to school, and I went and took pictures of the kids to put on the website so that they could get sponsors. And right away I was like, "Oh my gosh." I think that, for me anyway, I've had all these, like, experiences in my life where I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing." When I was
mm,
a high school senior photographer, I'm like, "This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is my calling in life, like, to build up these teenagers." And then I started doing this nonprofit work with my camera, again, kids education. I'm like, "This is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what I'm supposed to be doing." And then I did that. I was asked to be on the board of directors, and I was the public relations, and I did that for 4 years, and went to Haiti for 4 years, and did that. And it was a really, like, great experience. It taught me so much,
mm.
it was a really, like, cool experience. So,
Yeah. So each level of seeing, like, this is my calling has
yeah.
led to the next
Yeah.
level or expansion of what that calling actually is.
Yeah, and I just think you have to be open to, doing new things, and you don't know, you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to move and keep going. So,
Yeah. Keep learning from yourself, what's speaking to you, what's
yeah.
moving you forward. There's a
Yeah.
piece you mentioned where you realized that mindset was a part of a puzzle that maybe wasn't as present or understood at the time.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about where that came in and what you noticed kind of going on for you internally.
Yeah. So I am going to Haiti. I'm in this nonprofit. Have this super successful photography business. I have a photography magazine. This was kind of like the peak of my career. Like that's when I was in the Wall Street Journal. I was on Good Morning America. Like, I mean,
Mm,
things were really like going for me. And I had this experience where my son at the time was a freshman in high school, and he'd struggled a little bit the year before, and I remember this, like, moment where I was, like, driving him to school, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, I have 4 years left with him. He is a freshman, I have 4 years left with him." And at that time, I'm like, "You know what? I need to, like, step back. I need to, like" I'm doing all this stuff, I'm super busy, but, like, before I know it, it's gonna be gone, right? And I kinda stepped back. I raised my prices. We decided to sell the magazine. I was still doing the nonprofit work. And, I just kind of like stepped back and just focused on my kids a lot. In 2017, my son passed away. My 14-year-old son passed away. And it was just like a turning point for me where where you think things are like so important to you, and then like your life changes in such a drastic way where you are just like, "Oh my gosh, like, what am I doing?" And during that time, I was, like, grieving and trying to figure out, just how to survive. I was, like, in survival mode, and I somebody sent me a podcast, "Hey, listen to this podcast," and it was a life coaching podcast. It was Brooke Castillo, the life coach school, and they sent me this podcast, and I was listening to it, and during that same time, I decided that I was gonna start my own nonprofit in my son's name, and it's called the Compassion Club. And it's actually the Gage Schroeder Compassion Foundation is what it's called, but we call it the Compassion Club for my son because we saw all these kids that were, like, grieving, and we wanted to help them, and we're like, "How can we help them? How can we help them?" And I've always been somebody who's big in serving, and so I'm like, "We need to teach them to serve." One of my favorite quotes by Tony Robbins, it says, "We only suffer when we think of ourselves." And it's kind of been a mantra for me for my entire life, and I thought, "We need to teach these kids." And so we formed this nonprofit, and so I at the time, I had a kid in every school. I had an elementary kid, a middle school, and then my son that passed away was in high school. And we created these clubs, and we were going into school, all these different schools, and we were doing these like random acts of kindness and service, and we were trying to help these kids. And so then I formed my own nonprofit, and then I'm listening to these podcasts, and people are like, "You should be a life coach. Like you are helping all of these kids. You're helping all these people. Like you should be a life coach." And I said, "What is life coaching? Like, that's so hokey. Like, bust out the crystals. Like, what is a life coach?" And I listen to these podcasts. I'm like, "Oh, I love this stuff. I love this stuff." So I decided, I think this was like 2018. And around that same time, we had a kind of a crazy year. My son passed away. My husband lost his job, my husband at the time. And so we had to move. We were relocating. So it was just like all this at once. And I decided that I was going to get certified as a life coach. And I didn't really know what I was gonna do with it. I thought, "Oh, it'll help with my nonprofit," but it changed my life. The certification. I never did life coaching. Around that same time I moved, and I was actually helping these other life coaches in my certification with their businesses, and I'm like, "Oh, this is a good time to pivot and help." We were moving. I didn't wanna start another location-based business. It just kind of fell into place, but that was the time where the mindset stuff I've always been driven and I've always been motivated, but it is not the same thing. Like, the mindset is different. And I think of, like and that's really, like, it was a game changer for me, like, in so many ways, in my business, in relationships, everything is that mindset. And it was one of those things, like, you don't know what you don't know till you
mhm,
get. And, you say, like, self-trust, and when I think of self-trust, I kind of it kind of reminds me or makes me think of, like, confidence and self-confidence, like self-trust, self-confidence. And there's a portion of my training where I've always kind of been fascinated with, like, confidence. Like, why do some people have confidence and other people don't? And there's a part that says, like, our confidence is something that we have. And that's kind of related to our past. Like, because we've had all these past experiences. Like I knew I was confident I was a good photographer because I had all these clients. I was featured in magazines. Like I was on Wall Street Journal, Good Morning America. Like I had confidence. I have confidence that I can take my camera and I can take amazing pictures. I still have that confidence because I have this past where I have had these experiences. But self-confidence, which I think is very aligned with self-trust, is doing something and you don't know what the outcome is going to be. And that is where you like kind of take that leap of faith where you're like, I'm going to do this and I'm okay if I fail. And I feel like that it was like such a mindset shift for me where it was like, okay, like I'm going to do this and I might succeed and I might fail. And you know what? Either way, it's okay. Cause
Mm.
and that was like very pivotal for me because, and, you know, it's interesting because with my nonprofit that I have, I used to go and speak at schools all the time, and I had this whole presentation, and it was on failure, overcoming adversity through failure, you know? And I kind of talk about my life where I'm like, I had all this failure when I was younger. Like I didn't make these sports teams, and I didn't, you know, I didn't get into school or whatever. I had all these failures, and I think that like my failure helps me with my self confidence. Like I have learned to really like embrace failure, and it's okay
Mm.
to fail
What
because
did failure mean to you before that shift versus how you interpret it now?
well, I think it like before I think some people innately are okay to fail. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I think it's just but I think I was just like, "Oh," like, you kind of feel like, "I failed." Like, I mean, I think of what are the thoughts that a lot of people have when they're failure, like, "I'm not good enough. I
Mm.
don't know what I'm doing." And the mindset shift is, "I'm learning. This is a chapter of a book. This is a chapter of a book in my life. This is the chapter about learning. It's not about failure. This is the chapter about learning."
Mm.
And so I think it's just, you know, you look at all these things in your life and you think at the time it feels so heavy and so hard. But once you know, you take a few steps forward and you can look back and you say, oh, wow, I learned so much. Like we have the
Mhm.
most growth through failure, right? And we learn to trust ourselves and have that trust in ourselves where we're like, I can do this and I might fail and I might succeed. And either way, that's okay because I'm confident or I have trust in myself. And I think that is such a huge mindset shift to to
Yeah,
be able to be okay to do things regardless of what the outcome is going to be.
absolutely. In fact, I talk about self-trust is really a choice that you make, and it's creating this inner safety to experience the wins and the failures, to build the confidence, that comes from repetition, practice, experience, and to really grow that. And I think it speaks to this progress over perfection, which, something a lot of entrepreneurs say, but it's much harder to live by. What helped you move from knowing that concept of progress over perfection to actually practicing it?
Yeah, I think again, the tools that I gained from the life coaching, you know, because it's one of those things where I've always loved like self-help and personal development,
Mm.
but it's just like I mean, I think we've all had those moments in our life where we're like, "Oh my gosh, like, okay, like that makes sense." One of them for me about progress over perfection is I think, especially from my background in photography, because photography is very visual and aesthetic. And in a way, it's like you want it to look perfect. And I had this magazine where it was like, it was beautifully designed. The graphics were beautiful. The fonts were, you know, all those things. And I think one of the things that a concept that I learned is B minus work is better than nothing at all. So I think that's why I always say progress over perfection, because I think I posted something on Threads yesterday and it was saying something like, and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but it was like, perfection sometimes holds us back more than laziness
Yeah.
because we are like, I'll do it when it's perfect, or I'll do it when it's better, or I'll do this when I have this. And we're just like, when we take no action, we're not gonna get the results we want.
Yeah,
Like
it's as
action.
good as not taking action. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, for sure we learn nothing. We talk about tests at the Self Trust Coach, experiments, if you will. And You learn a ton from a failed experience, but you learn
So
nothing from an experiment you never run.
yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
And I think we have to learn, and I think a lot of times, entrepreneurs they're held back. "Oh, I'll do this when, and, I'll take this step
Mm,
when." And it's just like, "No, just do it. Just do it, and then you can figure it out." It's interesting because, like, sometimes I'll work with, like, other life coaches as, help them with their business, and I just say, "Just keep practicing. Just keep practicing." And I did that with photography. Like, I shot for free for so long before I really got paid, and it was like, I just have to do it. I just have to put myself out there. I'll figure it out as I go. I'll figure it
mm,
out as I go. So, I think it's just you trusting yourself enough to just say, "Okay, I'm jumping in. I'm jumping in."
yeah. How do you see perfectionism show up for the entrepreneurs you coach today?
I think, sometimes they think I think a lot of it is imposter syndrome, is like, like, they just don't have the confidence where they're like, "Okay, I should do this, but I'm not quite ready yet." And
Mm,
I'm like, "Just do it. Just do it." There's a book that I always talk about, and it's a book, but it's also a movie, and it's with Leonardo DiCaprio. Catch Me If You Can. I don't know if you know this,
mm,
but it's based on a true story about this man he was impersonating all these different, like, professionals. So he got a job in all these different things where he was a fraud, but there was an experience where he actually was a professor at a university and did not have the education. And he was getting interviewed once, and I mean, don't do this, but he was getting interviewed once, and he said, How did you teach? How did you teach at a collegiate level without the education?" And he said, "It was easy. You just have to be one chapter ahead."
mm,
And I think that is so true, like, because I think we get stuck on, "I need more of this. I need more of that." Like, I had a client where it was she wanted to be she knew so much about, like, nutrition and health, and she wanted to be a health coach, but she's like, "I just need more certifications." She had 1 or 2, but she's like, "I need more. I didn't graduate from college." Like, so then she doesn't, like, wanna charge as much because she doesn't, like, see her value, and, I'm just like, "No, no," like, that you don't need that. You
yeah,
don't need that, So I see it a lot. I think there's so many ways we see it with entrepreneurs.
absolutely. There's a point where we're fighting for or against what we don't want
Yeah,
instead of for what we do.
yeah,
And I hear also a lot that idea of I want to feel ready. I don't feel ready, as if ready is something that happens to you instead of
yeah,
something that you decide and
yeah,
then just move forward, because ready
yeah,
is not a feeling. It's never coming naturally. It will,
yeah,
it is waiting
for
for
sure.
you to give yourself permission to
Yeah,
just be
absolutely.
ready and move forward. Yeah. So you also mentioned that learning to control your mind is one of the greatest assets in business. Tell us a little bit about what that looks like in practice for
Yeah.
you now.
So, one of the tools that I learned as getting certified as a life coach is we naturally have like these thoughts, and these thoughts can be self doubt or negativity. The very first step is just awareness. So we we naturally just think like a certain way, right? But it's like catching yourself and saying, okay, like circumstances are neutral. That's what I always say. Like your circumstances are neutral, but it's like the thoughts that you put to them that gives them meaning. So I can say, hey, my website's not very good. That's my thought, right?
Mhm.
Because somebody else might look at my website and say, oh, your website's awesome. And so we put thought to it. So one of the things that I have learned is like recognizing, okay, that is my thought about that. That's my perception of that. And my perception is my own, and it might be different from somebody else. So the first step is just awareness.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, okay, if you want to feel a certain way, you have to change your thoughts. If I want to feel confidence, if I want to trust myself, I have to have a thought that supports that. So the first step is awareness. The second step is you're just kind of you catch yourself doing it. So a lot of times people are like they take an action or they don't take an action, and then afterwards they're like, okay, it's because I had this thought that I did this, but then the next step is really like catching yourself before you do it, changing your thought, and then moving forward. So, say for example, I'll give you an example. I am an entrepreneur and I have a website, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to launch because my website's just not good. Okay, that's my thought. So I can change that thought and I can say, you know what, my website is good enough. And I'm gonna, you have to catch yourself. You have to change the thought,
Mm,
Because when we have the thought, we feel a certain way, we take different actions, right? So if I trust myself, my action is I'm going to launch. My result is my business is going to get going. If I don't have that trust, I don't take any action and nothing happens. And so I think it's just the first step is awareness. I always say, just be aware that, hey, I'm creating this thought, doesn't serve me. And then the next step is learning to like change out your thoughts and to come up with a different thought that really serve you.
mm,
So
yeah. I wrote a whole book about our inner dialogue, and I come from the same school as you also. And so we know like our thoughts do create our feelings, and that impacts what we're willing to do or not do, the decisions we're willing to make or not make, and then it creates a result.
yeah,
And what I love to invite people to do is, if it's comfortable for you to change the thought, amazing. But also we can relate to them. Like if you think my white website's not good enough, one, you can say what would be good enough and then let me like take the action step to move towards that. You can also just answer it with, and it's good enough for right now.
yeah, yeah.
So that you're
That's
supporting yourself. You're not hitting yourself with toxic positivity or trying to force yourself into something you don't believe. But you're either shifting the perspective to what's more true or what's also true,
yeah, I
right?
love that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that.
so good. So a big part of business is that sometimes things go wrong, right?
Yeah.
But what helps you stay grounded instead of spiraling?
I think you have to fail. I think you get better at failing, So I think it's like
Mm,
practice. But I think it's just I think mindset is so important. I really do. But I also think having a plan, and I think that's where we kind of struggle where it's like, okay, if I'm a big planner and I think if we plan, it's like, okay, if this doesn't happen, here's the next thing. So don't just put everything in, I think you have to be able to pivot. And I think that is where people struggle, where they do something for so long and it works and then it doesn't. And then they get paralyzed. And
mm,
so I think it's just like, it's okay to fail, but like, okay, what can I do different? Like not just failing and moving on, but failing and looking back and reflecting and saying, okay, what can I do different? You were a speaker at my online summit,
yeah.
Fusion Collective, and this is my 3rd year doing it. And every year I do it, I learn something else. And every year it keeps getting better. I keep getting more people to sign up. I keep improving my systems. But it's like the first year I did it, I could look at it and say it was a failure. Like this, because what is a failure? Because a failure to one person might not be a failure to another person,
Right.
And so I think it's just learning and like, what can I do different? What can I do better? Instead of just getting stuck in self-doubt, getting stuck in the failure part.
Yeah. And not placing that overall label on it. Like it was a failure. It There are amazing wins in that first Fusion Summit, for
Yeah,
sure, else it wouldn't have led to Summit 2 and Summit 3. And
for
so
sure.
that's a big piece. In fact, it's what I taught at your summit, is really giving ourselves the ability to look at the full picture of data instead of just it failed or it didn't fail, it worked or it didn't work. There's amazing, beautiful data to pull from it that does work, that you'll want to amplify, that
Yeah,
didn't work that you want to release, and what could just be tweaked a little bit to make it better. It sounds like that's what you did.
yeah. Well, and I was gonna say, like right now, here's a good like real life example right now. I think I've kind of taught my brain to like when I try something new that I'm like, okay, this is the learning. The
Yeah.
first time I did my summit, I had 10 speakers. And I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I've got to figure this out. So in my head, I was just like, I'm learning. Of course, I had goals. And of course, I had these like, oh, like, hopefully I can make this much money. And I get this many emails, all the thing. And, I fell short because I set pretty big goals. But it was like also learning. Right now, I have a business membership. And in there, we're talking about challenges, how to do challenges to grow your email list. I've never done a challenge before, like I have had clients that have, but I've never done it. And so I'm doing a challenge right now and I'm doing all this research. And in my head, I'm just, you know what? I don't have expectations because I'm going to do it once and I'm going to figure it out. Like I will learn. And so I think it's like if we kind of have that mindset where, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm learning. like we don't have as high as expectations. We don't consider it a failure. We consider it like a learning.
Yeah.
I'm doing this.
And you're demonstrating something that's so important too is you are increasing your discomfort tolerance.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important piece. You demonstrated both increasing your discomfort tolerance, like normalizing, of course it's uncomfortable, and yet I'm learning and I'm going to do it. And then setting up systems to support. I actually was just coaching someone on this. So often we can think about structure and systems and process and calendaring, all these tools as these rigid, confining pieces. And what they actually are, if you build them in a way that works for you, they're
Yeah.
so supportive.
Yeah. Oh,
They
for sure.
help you. Yes,
Yeah.
and that's something that you actually do. You're a big part of your work is helping entrepreneurs automate and build systems that allow them to scale. Where do you most often see entrepreneurs getting stuck before they can reach that level?
Honestly, it is the action. It's like taking action. And I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand with the mindset portion of it. Well, I think it's a combination. It's the mindset, but it's also the how to and like just learning. Like I will figure it out. See, because so that's a mindset too. Because
Yep.
and this is a mindset shift that I learned when I got certified too, where I think we used to think I'm not smart enough to do this or I don't know how to do this. And my example that I always give is I had always paid somebody to build a website, and because I have this background with photography and graphic design, I'm never happy when it comes to, like, anything that's visual, right? Because I
Mm,
know what I like. And I kept thinking, "I need to hire somebody," and I'm looking at all these people who are building websites, and I'm like, "Oh, beautiful," but I'm just like, "Oh, so much money, and I will probably not like what I get." And so in my head, I always had this thought where it was like, "I can't build a website. I don't know how to build a website. I don't wanna say I'm not
mm,
smart enough, but, like, I don't I c code it's too hard. It's too hard. I can't do it. And I shifted my mindset where I said, "You know what? I am smart. I can figure this out." And so I challenged myself every day, and this is where the planning comes in, where I said, "Okay, for 1 hour every day, I'm either gonna work on my website or I'm gonna learn how to build my website." It took me 6 months. I built a website. I can build a website in 3 hours now. And
yep.
so but it was like that mindset, like, how many times do those things hold effect? I actually recorded a podcast not too long ago about this, and it was called My Bathroom Sink. So I recently got divorced, and I moved in, and I'm in a townhouse, and when we were moving in, my daughter dropped a glass soap dispenser in this pedestal sink, and it cracked it. So I'm like, "Oh, I need to get that replaced. I need to get that replaced." And I'm calling plumbers, and it's like $1,000 to get this pedestal sink replaced, and I'm like, "Oh, I do not wanna pay that." I'm like, "You know what?" And I went back to those mindset. I'm like, "You know what? I'm smart enough. I can replace a freaking pedestal thing. I can do it." And I did. I YouTubed it, I asked for help, and I replaced the sink. So now I am a self-proclaimed plumber now because, like, I replaced my pedestal like, so empowering, like, I can do these things. I mean, that's just a silly example. Obviously, I probably should have delegated it in all honesty as long as it took me, but it's just like it's that mindset, like, how many times in our life and in our business are we like, "I can't do this. I'm not smart enough," or "I don't have
Yeah.
the skill set." When it's like, "Yes, you are. You can learn this. You can learn this.
Yeah.
Anybody can."
Yeah. And to tie back to what we know about how we're thinking and feeling drives our actions, you won't
Yeah.
know until
Yeah.
you try. Right.
Well,
And so that idea of either fighting for your limitations, thinking, I can't do this, I'll never be able to do this, I can't figure it out, versus maybe I can,
yeah.
or let's see.
I will tell you what, everybody I knew, I told them that I was a plumber and that I did my like, I was so proud of my bathroom
Yeah.
sink. Well, it's one of those things, like, the harder it is, the biggest, like, obstacle you have, that is how you build confidence that translates into self-confidence and self-trust, is doing those things that build that.
Looking back at your journey now, photographer, publisher, strategist, coach, nonprofit founder, what does self trust look like as your identity has evolved?
I think it's just, like you can do anything that you decide you want to do. And so I think like trusting yourself, it like we all want to reach our potential. We all want to do like great things. Everybody wants to do great things. And so it's like the only person getting in your way is you. And it's, the power of your thoughts and learning those tools like opens up so many doors for you. so many doors for you. And
Like
and with
100%.
me, it's translated over being able to teach my children, being able to teach
Mm,
clients, like you can do anything that you want to do, you
yeah.
know, and just by having these thoughts and like you don't have to think negative thoughts, like you can do this. And I think it's just such an empowering tool to have.
I love that you say that because there is this ripple effect when we actually choose trust and choose to see ourselves as the architect of whatever we want to build.
Yeah.
The ripple effects are huge. The permission that it gives other people that we won't ever know, the
Yeah.
people that you're impacting in your business and in your nonprofit, like it ripples out through their lives too. I mean, you'll never know fully the ripple
One.
effect that you're making out in the world.
Yeah, that's for
So
sure.
tell us a little more about the entrepreneurs you're currently helping and the kind of work you just love doing most right now.
So I work with a lot of, I mean, the entrepreneurs are all over the place. Like I have coaches, I have real estate agents, I have business owners. And so really what I do is I work one-on-one, and I also have like a membership for people who are a little bit more, you want to do their own at their own pace, self-paced. But I help people, I look at their business and we say, let's create some systems and
Mm,
automations. And we kind of go through their funnels, look at their website, look at their email list, we look at their offers, we work with their copy, and we implement those changes so that they scale. So automation systems, building these funnels. So we build it, and then the strategy comes in after it's built, where we're like, "Okay, drive traffic. This is how you get traffic to your business." And
mm,
so those are some of the things. Without those, it's kind of like mindset. Like you can have mindset, but you have to also take action. You have to have hand in hand, and that's the same with the business. Is like you have to have systems, and you have to have like traffic. Like you have to have both of them to come together to build and scale a business. So those are the things I work on. My membership is, it's from top to bottom. We go through all the systems and in your business and make sure that you are optimizing them and build on, like automations and funnels and all the things. So that's
mm.
kind of me in a nutshell.
Yeah. So where can people connect with you or learn more about your work?
BrittniSchroeder.com. I have a podcast, Redefine Your Business. I'm everywhere at Brittni Schroeder, pretty much. But yeah, you can find me there. You can reach out to me. I'm on Instagram. I'm recently on Threads because I've been really like trying to learn more about Threads. I like to learn all the platforms as best I can. So, but I'm on Instagram. That's my main jam right there. But you can find me anywhere.
I love it. Well, we'll include all of those links in the show notes. Brittni, thank you so much for sharing your experience and your perspective today. One of the things I love about this conversation is the reminder that success in business isn't just about strategy, it's about the way you relate to failure, growth, and your own thinking along the way. And learning to trust yourself through that process really is one of the most valuable skills an entrepreneur can build. And for those of you listening or watching, if something in this conversation resonated with you, make sure to check the show notes where you'll find all of Brittni's links and ways to connect with her. And of course, if you have a self trust story to share, I'd love to hear it. And if you're ready to create your own, I'd love to help you claim it. Visit theselftrustcoach.com or click the link in the show notes for details. And of course, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of the incredible stories ahead. Thank you so much, Brittni.
Thanks.
See you next week.